Wouldn't it be great to have all of the energy you want all day long? Unfortunately, fatigue often gets in the way, even for everyday activities, and it seems to get worse every year. Here's why. When you're 20, your body has a natural ability to maintain healthy circulation, but every year that you age, your ability decreases. So what can you do to increase that natural circulation and fight fatigue? Drink Super Beets. Super Beets promotes the body's own natural ability to produce healthier circulation, resulting in increased energy and stamina all day long. Just mix a teaspoon into a few ounces of water with your choice of mild berry or black cherry flavor, and you can erase fatigue, increase your own natural energy. Call 800-664-5617 or go to danasbeats.com. And with your first order, get another 30-day supply of Super Beets free, plus indicator strips to see how Super Beets is working for you, and free shipping. Call 800-664-5617 or go to danasbeats.com today.
But now that the show is a hit, now that people are looking forward to the next episode, there's also talk about Roseanne Barr's real-life views, about what she's been tweeting about what she's been saying online, because she's been into conspiracy theories for years. You take a look at her Twitter feed, her social media feeds, you'll see it for herself. Some fringe conspiracy theories that she's been embracing, including one about something called QAnon, a conspiracy theory called The Storm. I'd really rather not go into details about them because they're so uncomfortable, but you can read about them on CNN.com and on the Daily Beast and other sites that have done explainers. Some of these conspiracy theories involve sex trafficking. They involve other kind of unhinged theories.
Yeah, so he's going to draw the line at reading it outright. That doesn't even make any sense. Welcome back to the show. I'm Dana Lash, at DLash on Twitter, official Dana Lash on Facebook. Yeah, that just is doesn't even... Not even. No. Mm-mm. This is the whole, she's successful, so they want to go after her. That's what this is. She's successful, and she has a good show, and so they want to go after her because that program, it's this whole internet mob. It's just this, not internet mob, but just the rage mob in general, we're going to talk a little bit about today. And I noticed this because it wasn't just Brian Stelter that was doing this. There were a number of other people who are, journalists or whomever, that were doing this and tweeting out, oh my gosh, remember when Roseanne said this, or when Roseanne was talking about this, or anything, and they were going at her for anything that she had ever said previously, with which they didn't agree. And so they're trying to, anyone who is not a progressive, anyone who is in any way effective at even making somebody on the right look human, they have to go after those people. They have to go after all of that, and that's what this is. So and she's not even a conservative. Roseanne's not even a conservative. But it's just pretty dumb that this is, now they're going to go, the rage mob is going here, and this is what it's insane. Anyway, but that's all part of, it's all that rage mob. That's what this is. So over the weekend, really, it's just been a lot of Washington infighting and things of that nature. I mean, ultimately, I didn't even, honestly, I was very happy to not pay attention to any of the news over the weekend. It was nice. You have to have you have to take a break every now and then, because everybody, I think, just lives in, these little ideological spheres. Now, there's been this boycott going on against Laura Ingraham on Fox and going after her Fox producers and all of that stuff. And Brian Stelter said, well, we have to end this. When he was, in a way, going after Roseanne, he was saying that, and I can't believe, every now and then you get it right. He said, are ad boycotts the right answer here? He says, I'm personally pretty wary of this. I think it's dangerous to see these ad boycott attempts happening more and more in this country. My view is, let's not shut down anyone's right to speak. Let's meet their comments with more speech. Let's try to respond that way. That's correct. But the problem is that it was his network as well that set up all of these indictments against law-abiding people, calling them murderers. I was called a murderer. I was, called everything under the book. I own Congress and I'm a murderer and I like guns more than kids, apparently. And they allowed that to stand unchallenged until just very recently. I mean, for weeks and weeks. But it's good that he acknowledges this, because this is, it's mutually assured destruction. That's what this is. He has to acknowledge it, because it could turn around and be used against him. He has to acknowledge it. That's what I don't think a lot of people are realizing here. I honestly, have you ever seen at any point, people freaking out and let's go after their advertisers as often as has been happening lately? Because I haven't seen that. Not at this pace. Definitely not at this pace. It's this just, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this. It's just this rage mob. It is an absolute rage mob. In media anymore, you have people who, and really, the adults set this precedent. You have people who, and in activism, you have people who are on the left who I've just seen behave ghoulishly towards people over the past several years, actually longer than that, past 10 years. And it's just gotten worse and worse. And none of these people want to be the adults that they are. None of them want to be the adults that they are. I commented about this on my program on NRA TV, which airs at 5 p.m. Central. And I commented on this. And I had this is important, but I had my hair pulled up, and it was towards the end of the show, and I was remarking on this and how it needs to stop. And I had Media Matters, and I don't even know where this one guy, I don't know if it's Think Progress or where, talk about my hair bun, and they said, oh, it's a mom bun. And then they say, oh, well, she's only saying this because she wants it to stop. And, and then they try to act like, oh, well, now she's a mom, which I don't even know what that, oh my gosh, I've been a mom for a while now. What in the world is wrong with these people? Nobody can have a conversation about anything because they're too busy. What does that do? So what? I can't pull my hair up? So I can't, because I'm being the adult in the room and I'm saying everybody needs to walk it back and check themselves here. So what? You guys don't want to say that. People like the Media Matters and everywhere else, they inflame this stuff to an awful degree while trying to act like these bipartisan ombudsmen, which they're anything but. It's just this outrage mob. Everybody constantly, they want to freak out and get outraged over absolutely everything. And that's what they do when they can't see. The problem is that there are people on the left who they will never take what Brian Stelter says here. You have to meet their speech with more speech. They don't want to meet anybody's speech with more speech because they don't have anything to say. You got to have something to say. You have to have something that makes sense. You have to have something that's based in some sort of reality, and they just simply don't. That's why they can't debate their ideas in the public square. Bottom line. So they don't want to meet speech with more speech because they don't have anything to say. And anybody who is against that, that's the reason why. They want to shut other people down because they don't have anything to say. They want to shut people down because they can't make the argument. So why even try? That's what it all is. And people need to realize this. It is a cultural battle right now. And there's no getting away from it. We have at 44344, Dana is the number to join the program. This whole internet rage mob thing, I think ultimately this stuff has just got to end, because it's to the point where it's ridiculous. Nobody can say anything anymore without somebody freaking out. Oh my gosh! And they lose their ever-loving mind, and then they go after ads. They attack, personally. They do all of this stuff, and for what? Like we talked about the idea that because Laura Ingram's off all this week on Fox, she's not even on TV all this week. I mean, I'm not personally a fan. I don't think that what she said was helpful, but is it all of this? This is stupid. It is stupid, people. For real, stop it. Especially when I see Kyle Kushner attacked by, MSNBC contributors and Joan Walsh and all these other progressives. But no, I mean, actually, really nasty things are said to him by these verified adults, and nothing is done. There's no, they do not police that equally. They just simply don't. But of course, you can't get an apology out of somebody who's honest and who's decent and honestly feels poorly for their behavior, things that they've said. You can't do that. Just not. It's just we're going to get into a lot more of this. Before we get going, though, Blink Home Security is great because it's not reactionary. I like home security that's a little bit proactive, that lets you know if somebody's just checking out your house as opposed to they've already broken in. And this is what Blink is. Blink is a motion active video camera. And the instant that they detect somebody snooping inside or outside of your home, or even if they're looking in your car, you get an alert and a video clip on your smartphone. Their cameras are wire free. They set up in minutes. They run on batteries that you don't replace for a really long time. And they have a live feed option too. So that means no matter where you are in the world, you can monitor your home from your smartphone. Get 3 Blink cams for what the other guys typically charge for one, plus you get an extra 10% off. Visit blinkprotect.com/Dana. That's blinkprotect.com/Dana.
Being in a live fire situation definitely is not like the movies. Almost nothing can prepare you for the real thing, but there's a new product that can help. It's called iTarget Pro. Utilizing your cell phone, their proprietary app uses a laser in place of the bullet and will detect exactly where your shots are landing. Now you can practice home defense where it matters most, in your home. You can test different angles, maximize your tactical advantage, and most importantly, be prepared should you find yourself in an unthinkable situation. Right now, save 10% with the offer code DANA when you purchase the iTarget Pro system. Competitive shooters dry fire 10 times more than they live fire, and the iTarget system will take your dry fire practice to a whole new level. Save 10% with the offer code DANA. That's the letter I, targetpro.com. itargetpro.com.
Spanning coast to coast and all over Flyover Nation.
The Dana Show.
A big group of students at Rockledge High School in Brevard County, Florida, they walked out of school on Friday in support of the Second Amendment, but nobody really covered it. There was a local ABC affiliate there who covered it, but nobody, none of the big networks were interested because kids who like the Second Amendment don't interest them. So they're not going to cover it. And especially if they can't use those kids to go after people that they don't like, they're just not going to cover it. Anyway, let's go ahead and kick it into some Quick Five, shall we?
It's time for Dana's Quick Five.
So Roseanne ratings climb and hit 25 million viewers. With a time-shifting record, says Hollywood Reporter. They say the ratings keep climbing. The new totals for the premiere have 25 million viewers now. A 7.3 rating among adults ages 18 to 49. So that's huge because they say that looking at the audience, the 6.6 million add-ons from the premiere is a time-shifting record. And that doesn't even include the 4.3 million viewers. So that's pretty crazy. That's huge.
She brought people to TV. She brought people back to television, essentially, is what that means.
Yeah, she did. Yeah. That's true. I mean, these are huge numbers. These are huge numbers. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty big. Moving on down the line. Let's see, because there's a lot to get in here. So this is the Chinese space station that we were talking about, smashes to Earth at 17,000 miles per hour off the coast of Tahiti. It's a 9-ton installation. It's the size of a bus, and it came crashing into the atmosphere. It just missed Tahiti, by the way. This is what really I thought was hysterical about this. Let me pull this up because this is why I like this story. They said that China said that this space station, the reason that everyone is talking about how it's re-entering the atmosphere is they said jealousy. Yeah, that's what they actually said. Yep. They said it's normal for, this is their statement. They said it's normal for spacecraft to re-enter the atmosphere, yet Tiangong received so much attention partly because some Western countries are trying to hype and mudsling at China's fast-growing aerospace industry.
They're talking like it almost didn't smash to Earth.
Yeah, wow.
What's up with
They're
that?
wrong, but okay. Yeah, I know. This is so silly. I don't even understand this. This is so goofy. But that's, anyway. 50% of people are coming around to Trump. It outpaces Obama, and he's outpacing Obama in approval ratings. It's 50% on Rasmussen's daily presidential tracking poll. It puts him ahead of Obama at the same point in his presidency. Yeah, you have to impeach. No, it's, Barack Obama was 46% at the time of April 2nd, 2010, and the president is at 50%. So, interesting. 46 to 50%. And if you shop at Lord & Taylor or Saks, your credit card may have been hacked. This according to statements from the company. The conglomerate's Hudson's Bay Company said that payment cards used by customers at Lord & Taylor and Saks Fifth Avenue locations may have been compromised. The hacking syndicate announced the release for sale over 5 million stolen credit and debit cards, they say. So and they're selling it on the black market. They say about 125,000 payment cards and the involved information have so far been released for sale. Yeah, it's a lot. Cybercrimes are picking up like mad. But yeah, just this, you almost can't. I mean, I think everybody at some point it has it happen to them, no matter what you do. That's just, it's what it seems like. Our universe could be destroyed abruptly in a collision with a bubble of negative energy, warned scientists who, according to Daily Mail, say that the process may have already started. I mean, negative energy, it's like everybody's so awful right now. There you go. It's a study that says that it'll happen around 10 times 139 years, something like that. I know. Yeah. None of these, it's everything, something always awful is going to happen. I also have this study where it says cell phones are causing tumors in rats, but I've read this. They say phone radiation causes tumors in rats, and I've seen these type of studies before. This one was reported on CBS, where they keep saying this. You know what I mean? They come out with but sometimes it's just so manipulated, and I don't know, because I've seen these studies debunked several times. So coming up, the outrage mob. We're going to discuss that, and the president noticed a huge bunch of people heading to the border to cross illegally. Stay with us.
Stream the podcasts. Tell your Amazon device, Alexa, play the Dana Show podcast.
She's a grown woman going after a teenager and poking fun at him, not even challenging his position on gun violence, but going after him personally. She apologized, but I think that apology was more, I got caught and now my advertisers are leaving my show, more than being genuine. But the point is, you have a grown woman. And I agree with the senator, this toxic environment that has been created, and not just because Mr. Trump is in office, it is just, if you are on social media, it gives people license to say whatever they want to say about people in this
And you have grown adults who are allowing some of this nasty stuff to be said about other adults, and y'all are culpable in how nasty it is because you sanction it and don't say anything. I mean, look, somebody's got to be the adult and step up here. And it is, and the adults who are, these gun control adults, this is to their plan. This is exactly how they wanted it. And the fact that, these people aren't outraged. I agree with what my friend Matt Walsh wrote. He said that, he goes, the reason that the outrage, that all these people who are, that are outraged, the reason that they haven't relented is because they're not really outraged. They're not outraged. You know why they're not outraged? They're not outraged. They have no problem referring to me and others as murderers. They have no problem going after my kids and saying that they hope my kids' school's next. Oh, yeah, these adults have said this. Those same gun control supporters, they've said all kinds of stuff or that I'm covered with blood, or that all these law-abiding Americans are nothing but terrorists. That's pretty nasty if you want to talk about nasty. They've even attacked students that don't agree with them, like Kyle Kushov. They've attacked him 50,000 times worse than anything that Ingram ever said. But the thing is they're not really outraged. It's a tactic. They're not outraged. They're not upset. They didn't have their feelings hurt. It's a tactic. That's it. This is, to them, this is just a strategy for them. Because you can't, it doesn't even matter if you, and frankly, I just don't think that she should have apologized. Not unless we have some of these other adults come forward and say, yeah, remember the time that we said on television that you were murderers? Or when we allowed that to be said on television unchallenged? We're sorry about that. She shouldn't have tweeted anything at all, period. But, at that point. And the reason is because people aren't really outraged. It's just a tactic to get at her. That's all it is. It's just a tactic. Am I really to believe that, people who think it's fine to call parents murderers and go after their kids and say some really nasty stuff? Am I suddenly to believe that when it was brought up about that one student not getting into some of the colleges that he wanted to get into, am I to believe now that suddenly that's, oh my gosh, she said whining, and that's a bridge too far? I mean, is that what we're to believe? These people are not really outraged. That's the thing. They just want you to think that they are. They just want you to think that they are. I mean, like, if you've done something, so bad and it's, so scandalous and there's genuine hurt feelings, fine. But this is about submission. It's not about apology. It's about submission. And in a way, you're cooperating with their tactics when you submit. And that's what this was. I mean, it's this. I'm just seeing this happen all the time. And as I mentioned, Brian Stelter had even made mention of it. Like, well, it's not great to be doing all of that. Well, you never stopped people when they were on your program. His program's part of it. I mean, this outrage is a tactic. Outrage is a tactic, and it just goes back and forth. These people they're not truly indignant. They want submission. They want total silence of their opposition. I asked last week, I asked the Moms Demand folks, because they had previously said that any firearm that shoots more than 10 rounds a minute should be classified as an assault weapon. And then they said that, well, we need to ban assault weapons in a separate tweet. And so I had put them together and I said, so you want to ban all guns? Well, they didn't like that. They lost their ever-loving minds. Well, did you change your position? I asked, can you clarify this? They refused to answer. They lost their ever-loving minds. And then I asked, okay, well, can you at least answer this one? Do you endorse your founder's position on stop and frisk? Because Michael Bloomberg, who founded Moms Demand and founded Everytown, he was a couple of years ago speaking at the Aspen Institute, and he stated how he thinks that young black males should be, quote, thrown up against the wall and frisked. He believes in to stop and frisk, or more precisely, they're called Terry stops. This has been a Supreme Court issue already. And even though there have been a number of studies that shown stop and frisk actually didn't reduce the number of illegally possessed firearms on the streets. I think it was like 0.2%, something like that, not even a full point. He still supports it. And he was so outraged that people were remarking on him saying that he tried to stop the Aspen Institute from releasing video of his remarks. And so I asked Moms Demand about that. I said, do you endorse your founders, your boss's policy on stop and frisk? They wouldn't answer that one either. Lost their ever-loving minds. I asked very politely, and instead they went after, again, my appearance and everything else, and never, ever answered the question because they can't. Because that's their true aim. Never forget that. And anytime they want to act outraged, they just want submission. That's what all that is. That's what all this is. This is about submission. Nothing more. Don't submit to it. Plain and simple. I will never submit to any ideology that thinks it acceptable to call millions of people terrorists and murderers simply because they think that their children deserves the same protection that Michael Bloomberg and Shannon Watts gets. I will never, ever submit or take seriously the outrage from any ideology that thinks it's acceptable to say that people have blood on their hands when they clearly do not, and who go and attack people's appearance and their families as a substitute for informed discussion. No. They're not owed anything. No. These people who play with these tactics and this ideology. No. And so, I don't know. It's sad to see so much of all of this and the left has just, particularly gun control advocates, have just turned into some of the nastiest people. Just some of the nastiest. And you can see it. This is why they've never been successful as a movement. Because they can't help themselves. They just get nasty. They start attacking innocent people. They can't help themselves. That's what's unfortunate. We have more to get into here coming up. Also, this, pull this up. I have this story for you. This army, I don't know what else you want to talk about, how else you want to call it, this army of people who, they're actually in Mexico illegally now, and they're marching towards the United States. The president has made mention of this too. So we're going to discuss that here in just a moment when we come back when we go to break. But that is, and there's like over 1,000 of them, I think, at this point. It's pretty unbelievable. ZipRecruiter is really great if you are looking to fill a position and you have to hire someone that you can trust, someone that's going to, be good for the position that you're looking for, someone that has the right talents and the right skills. And this is where it can get really difficult. ZipRecruiter knew that, and so they created this whole platform that finds the right job candidates for you. They learn what you're looking for. They identify people with the right experience, and then they invite them to apply to your job. And 80% of employers, in fact, who have posted a job on ZipRecruiter, they got a quality candidate. You get a quality candidate through the site in just a day. And ZipRecruiter doesn't stop there. They even spotlight the strongest applications you receive so you never miss a great match. The right candidates are out there. ZipRecruiter is how you find them. Businesses of all sizes trust ZipRecruiter for their hiring needs. And right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/Dana. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Dana. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
Being in a live fire situation definitely is not like the movies. Almost nothing can prepare you for the real thing, but there's a new product that can help. It's called iTarget Pro. Utilizing your cell phone, their proprietary app uses a laser in place of the bullet and will detect exactly where your shots are landing. Now you can practice home defense where it matters most, in your home. You can test different angles, maximize your tactical advantage, and most importantly, be prepared should you find yourself in an unthinkable situation. Right now, save 10% with the offer code DANA when you purchase the iTarget Pro system. Competitive shooters dry fire 10 times more than they live fire, and the iTarget system will take your dry fire practice to a whole new level. Save 10% with the offer code DANA. That's the letter I, targetpro.com. itargetpro.com.
Follow along on Twitter @DLash.
And official Dana Lash on Facebook.
So I was trying to figure out if BMW, have you found, because I read somewhere that they are the latest to pull from the Fox show that Ingram has. And I just thought that would, because if they didn't like her apology, someone reminded them that, well, you guys remember when you supplied Nazis with vehicles, BMW, so maybe we don't accept your apology. I've never been a fan of boycotts, but man, I'm kind of starting to reconsider. You know? I'm starting to reconsider
I like
it.
Boycotts, where I'm looking at a company that's being sort of, lambasted for, say, for example, any one of these advertisers that are being bullied around because they advertise during Laura's time slot. Just finding any one of those and buying something from one of those advertisers.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that, but I don't know. I just was looking at just the way that everything is set up, whether it's new media or everything else, and so many things are dominated by progressives, and I think that, at some point, people are going to need to think about, I don't know, it just seems that there's a lot of stuff set up to aid progressives in the silencing of any kind of conservative dissent. That's what it seems like. There's a lot of stuff set up for that. It just makes me, I'm just thinking about it, that there's too many things where Facebook and Twitter and, all of these different platforms are controlled by people with very progressive ideologies and things of that nature. We're entering a brave new world. We really are. So one of the things that the president had actually remarked on over the weekend is this group of over 1,000 people. They're actually in Mexico illegally. They came from Honduras and other countries, and they're marching to the United States so that they can gain entry. And I don't think that that's how it works. That's not really how it works. But this, it's a army of them. Army of people. They have somebody with BuzzFeed walking with them, but instead of reporting on it, they're just like rah-rah cheerleader activist stuff. But Mexico's not doing anything at all to any of these people. It's all, they're in Mexico illegally. They came from Honduras, a number of other countries. Mexico's not doing absolutely anything. And it seems a lot of people one of the things that the BuzzFeed reporter noted is that it is, they're trying to do everything that they can to just get them out of their public square. I don't know. That's going to be a showdown. All the media is going to be there at that border when they finally, I think, make their way to the border and they cross. So get ready for that news cycle, because then you're going to have this army of people, and then they're standing up against border security, and that's what it's going to be.
You think they're going to be able to cross?
No.
Yeah, they're not going to cross.
Yeah, you can't really sneak with an army of 1,000 some odd people.
When you're waving flags and marching, it's not.
Yeah, it's like really, it's kind of difficult to sneak.
It's not stealthy.
In that particular, it's very difficult to do that. We have a new addition to our affiliate family today, KFNX in Phoenix, which is a beautiful city. I love going to Phoenix. I haven't been there in a couple of years, but I love going to Phoenix. But we welcome them because they're brand new, so they're going to learn a lot of weird stuff about the show. Like our Florida person, man. Some days it's man. Some days if Justin Trudeau we think is listening, then it's person. We have our Florida man, Steve's singing. We have Good Time Glaive, who is not in today, but he will be in tomorrow. And he's a real his name's just Glaive, but he's recently, after a stint at Mardi Gras, taken to calling himself Good Time Glaive. And
the artist formerly known as Glaive.
It's just so bizarre. He does good work, I guess. Otherwise, I just would not have him here.
It does work.
He's weird. He reminds me of that dude who played who's the Kim? Not Macaulay Culkin. Elijah Wood. He reminds me of Elijah Wood's character from Sin City. Sorry, it was mean, but he does though. I'm not even kidding. Anyway, so welcome KFNX. Can't even talk. KFNX to the Dana Show. We're glad to have you. So yeah, you'll learn a lot of weird stuff. Oh, and then we read our hate mail on Friday, and we have open lines on Friday. So make a note of that. And yeah, so we do a lot of good stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so this I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the Rage Mob stuff tonight on Relentless on NRE TV at 5 p.m. Central, because this is not going to end. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse, particularly if you have people who submit to it. But I think people need to stop justifying that. And I'll say it again. I think it is the height of vulgarity to claim that disagreement is persecution, or to say that if you're disagreeing with someone, then you're attacking them. You have got to be kidding me. Knock that off. That is absolutely vulgar. Disagreement is not persecution. I do not say the term snowflake. I don't say it, but I'm really inclined to in this particular instance. Disagreement is not persecution. Stop acting like it is. It isn't. But it's this we've got to stop this. And honestly, the adults in some of this, where are you at? Oh, I know. You're probably sitting there cheering it because you love this. This is you like name calling as a form of debate. You like calling people murderers. It just is inappropriate when you have middle-aged men and women making these arguments. So that's why you're quiet right now, for the most part. Anyway, second hour on the way, and don't forget, on Twitter at DLash, on Facebook, official Dana Lash, and then on Instagram and all that other good stuff as well. More of the Dana Show. Stay with us.
One, don't run for Senate in South Carolina. I'm up here to defend the Second Amendment rights of my citizens, my constituents, not take them away. I hope every Democrat will be asked what you asked me. Is it a good idea to repeal the Second Amendment? Because I want every Democrat to answer that question. This is a very bad idea. I'm glad he's retired. He has right to his opinion like every other American. But I'm up here to protect the Second Amendment, not repeal it. And I can't wait to hear what Nancy Pelosi says and every other liberal Democrat. See if they will stand with Justice Stevens or they'll stand with the Constitution. I'm dying to know.
You know, that's Lindsey Graham. I'm agreeing with Lindsey Graham for a moment. Let's just all pause and savor that for a second, shall we? I'm agreeing with him for a second. Welcome back to the show. At DLash on Twitter, official Dana Lash on Facebook. We'll be going back to the phones here in a few. This, I want people to think about this. Like, I don't care where you stand on it right now. I want you to think about what happens if this is to go through and to actually to do what retired Associate Justice Stevens is suggesting there, when he was like, well, we just need to get rid of the Second Amendment. We just need to get rid of it. Well, let's look at, what does that entail if you get rid of it? First off, let's just go down the line. First, it's you do it then. Don't write about it, do it. Start the process. Let everybody know exactly where you stand on it. Just go and start it. You can't say that you're okay with the Second Amendment, but you are not okay with Heller. You don't get to do that, because what you're basically saying that it's an oxymoron. You can't say that you're okay with the Heller decision, which reaffirmed the right of individuals to own a firearm for their self-defense, and that you're okay with the Second Amendment. You can't. My friend Charles Cook wrote, a Second Amendment without the supposedly pernicious Heller interpretation wouldn't be any impediment to regulation at all. It would be dead letter. See, look. So the problem immediately it's like it's a huge thing. You have to go to Congress. You're going to have to go all around the country, because you have to have 2/3 majority of both houses. And then then there's even more and more after that. You have to go and you have to lobby. You have to lobby Congress. And
You're going to have to explain how the founders were wrong. And you're going to have to convince people what that actually looks like. Why is the Second Amendment, why were the founders wrong? And you're going to have to convince people that firearm ownership wasn't for individual ownership. It was only for the government. And it was only for law enforcement. And it was only for military. If you want to repeal it, go on. Tell them. Go and however, my friend Charles wrote, you'll have to tell anyone who will listen to you that they need to support you. And that if they disagree, they're childish and they're beholden to the gun lobby and that they don't care enough about children and that their reverence for the founders is mistaken and that they have blood on their blank damn hands and they want to own firearms only because, their phalluses are small and they're not real men. And remember, you got to go full at it. See, reform isn't enough. You have to do all of that. And then you have to create the laws that are going to bring this about. You have to actually write it. You got to go, and then you have to go in every one of these own states, all of the states all across the country, and each one of these states also have their own protections of the Second Amendment. They have constitutional protections themselves. And then you're going to have to persuade all of these states. You're going to have to get them all on board. And then if you can get something drafted, then you're going to have to deal with lawsuits because states are going to file suit. They're going to claim overreach. They're going to do all of this. They're going to say this is unconstitutional. States are going to file suit. And here's the other big thing that I think a lot of people aren't thinking about. You're not just going to have the NRA pushing back. It won't just be the NRA pushing back. That's the thing. You're going to have churches. You'll have unions. My friend Charlie said you're going to have PTA people. Even beyond that, you're going to have regular, everyday citizen groups organized to push back. You will turn every single gathering of people into an organized group to push back against the repeal. Every single one of them. It won't just be the NRA. It won't just be law-abiding gun owners. It's going to be everyone that sees what a Pandora's box this is going to create. You're going to have to you're going to have to get all the politicians on board. You're going to have those states, instead of them suing you, you're going to have to get them to where they write those constitutional protections, like the state of Missouri or the state of Texas. They're going to have to write those constitutional protections out of their state constitutions as well. And then here's the thing. Say you do it. Say you're able to get enough, you're able to bypass all of the necessary congressional requirements to get it done. And you've repealed the Second Amendment. Well, now you have to enforce it. You have millions and millions of gun owners out there. Now you're going to have to enforce it. And it's not enforced without force. So how are you going to do that? I mean, think about this. Millions and millions of gun owners. I think, what is it, that there's 350 million privately owned firearms? So you're going to have a plan. My friend Charlie writes, you'll have to go state by state, county by county, street by street, door to door. You'll need a detailed roadmap to abolition that involves the military and the police and a whole host of informants, and probably a hell of a lot of blood. Sure, the ACLU won't like it, especially when you start going around poorer neighborhoods. Sure, there are probably between 20 and 30 million Americans who would rather fight a civil war than let you into their houses. And sure, there's no historical precedent in America for the mass confiscation of a commonly owned item, let alone one that was, until recently, constitutionally protected. I mean, sure, it's slightly odd that you think you can't deport 11 million people, but you can search 123 million homes. But that's just the price we have to pay. Times have changed. It has to be done. So for the children and for America and for the future, hey, hey, ho, ho, the Second Amendment has got to go. Let's do it. So when do you get started? When? You know, I was reading this story the other day to you all about that census question that everyone's freaking out over. I can't believe you're going to put this in a census. I can't believe you're going to go door to door and you're going to ask people whether or not they are also American citizens. That is too much. You are creating a registry of people in this country who are here illegally. Heinous, un-American, unconstitutional. But wait, hey, if you're going door to door and you're asking for census, can you ask them what guns they own and how many? And can you put that in a registry? Because that's totally fine. Wow. Very interesting. I guess they didn't think that out. I mean, but really though, I mean, if it's bad to ask people who are living in the United States whether they are American citizens, and you're afraid that creates a registry and you're afraid of what someone might do to it, but you don't have that same fear for law-abiding Americans who are firearm owners. And I have seen this. In fact, I have a Washington Post piece that I'm going to share with you where, in fact, they do call for the complete deconstruction of the law that protects Americans from a national registry being created. Then are you really concerned about government overreach and a registry? Because it seems it's only situational. You know, they already did that, by the way, in New York. I told you the publication that actually did publish all of the home addresses of every concealed handgun licensee. They published all their addresses and they pinned it on a map and they showed you exactly where everyone lived. And they said, because people need to know where they actually defended it. They said, everyone, you don't have a right to privacy when you have a firearm. They actually argued that. But yet, if you're here illegally, you have a right to privacy. But you don't have a right to privacy if you own a firearm. Those are the arguments that are given. I know, wrap your head around that. But seriously, though, for those who want to repeal, and I've seen it over and over again, I saw tons of signs. I have so many screenshots of signs that I saw. And that's ultimately when I was in the town hall and I said, you want to ban, semi-automatic fire. They want to ban semi-automatic firearms. If you want to do all of that, how do you enforce it? Again, you think it's silly to go and deport 11 million people, but it's completely fine to go door to door to 123 million homes and confiscate with force, forcibly take commonly owned items that were constitutionally protected? You find less of a problem with that? Have these people thought this through? No. I mean, this is what I find incredibly troubling. Incredibly troubling. There we have it. I have so much more to discuss with you, a lot more, and we're going to get into we're going to get to even more of it. There's too much. But in the meantime, before we do, let me tell you what I don't believe. I don't believe in boycotts. I can't stand boycotts. I just have never liked them. And it's not just, I just would rather make my own choices. And if you're like me, or maybe you do like boycotts, I don't know. With my old big mobile phone service, I found out how much money my phone service was donating to Planned Parenthood every year. And that made me sick. Because, they're already taxpayer. I don't care where you stand on abortion. Planned Parenthood gets over $500 million taxpayer dollars a year anyway. And yet we give a pittance to our veterans, but whatever. And I just was like, what? Don't they get enough of my money? And then I found out how much they were donating to gun control. And I thought, okay, I'm done. So that's when I started talking to Patriot Mobile. It is a Texas born and bred company. It is the only conservative cell phone service out there. And they have very competitive plans. And the question that I get asked the most, how is the coverage? It's fantastic. And I also love how if I ever have a question, like I was talking to them about the iPhone 10 just the other day, when I call, I talk to real live humans here in the United States. And they're helpful. They make sure that you're taken care of. And here's the other thing. They donate a portion of their proceeds to issues you support. Things like your Second Amendment rights, strong border security, Family Research Council, all of that. So by joining Patriot Mobile, you put your money where your beliefs are. You don't fund your opposition. And right now, Patriot Mobile is offering the Backlash Special. So when you sign up with Patriot Mobile, or if you add a line, you get an autographed copy of a hardcover copy. Where that book is going into the third printing for paperback. Hardcover is hard to come by. Hardcover copy signed of my first book, Hands Off My Gun. Only while supplies last. Do not miss this exclusive offer, only from Patriot Mobile. Backlash Special, patriotmobile.com, 1-800-A-PATRIOT.
Being in a live fire situation definitely is not like the movies. Almost nothing can prepare you for the real thing, but there's a new product that can help. It's called iTarget Pro. Utilizing your cell phone, their proprietary app uses a laser in place of the bullet and will detect exactly where your shots are landing. Now you can practice home defense where it matters most, in your home. You can test different angles, maximize your tactical advantage, and most importantly, be prepared should you find yourself in an unthinkable situation. Right now, save 10% with the offer code DANA when you purchase the iTarget Pro system. Competitive shooters dry fire 10 times more than they live fire, and the iTarget system will take your dry fire practice to a whole new level. Save 10% with the offer code DANA. That's the letter I, targetpro.com. itargetpro.com.
Fisking the news media to give you the truth.
It's Dana Lash.
So at DLash on Twitter, official Dana Lash on Facebook, I have triggered progressives like Think Progress so badly they devoted their entire morning and they got their entire editorial staff completely focused on me. So that's how you know that they find the truth that you speak, if they find it dangerous to their agenda. And that's just incredibly unfortunate. But it is, they are who they are. Anyway, so, this is one of the things I'm talking about. Like, I have not heard from really any anti-gun activist or anti-Second Amendment activist. I haven't heard from a single one that actually came to me to speak calmly or even about the issues. Not one. I'm not exaggerating because I would have be responding to them on Twitter. I don't see them. They're just complete. Like they're like, well, they, like I had one of them say, yeah, you're going to think differently when your kids are massacred next. And I'm just like, wow, how in the world does that help your viewpoint? That's the kind of talk that really makes me glad that I have my Second Amendment. Stop. Good night. Anyway, yeah, I know. I know, you're right, Kane. 100% of criminals are responsible for all mass shootings, not law-abiding citizens. Okay, so I have a lot more to get into you with. Let's kick it into some Quick Five.
It's time for Dana's Quick Five.
Facebook has gone on a hiring spree for Washington lobbyists. They're seeking 11 policy managers for D.C. because executives were described as unprepared in all the congressional briefings. So they're on a hiring spree. They're trying to get as many people as possible to be able to handle this stuff. And it's, yeah, I know. It's pretty unbelievable. So I actually have more on that coming up. You would be shocked because Kane was like, why do I have tamarind in all of my Facebook ads? Yeah, we're going to talk about all of that. This citizenship question on census could cost states like California a House seat, says ABC. They say that the ultimate cost could come in the way the population is counted, shifting it from an urban focus to a more rural-centric approach, which would benefit Republicans and hurt Democrats, according to experts. That's why there's a lot of weeping and gnashing of the teeth over this. Walmart says it's going to remove Cosmopolitan magazine from checkout lines because of the Me Too movement. What? They say that they're removing Cosmopolitan. Out of all of the magazines, they're taking Cosmo out. So they said that they're taking it out. They said they want to do that. It's going to happen in 5,000 stores across the country. They issued a press release and they said that we don't want people to be exposed to this graphic and degrading and offensive material. Okay, well, anyway,
I don't know. I mean, I do. Yeah. I mean, all the feminists are going to, Steve said, yeah, feminists write for those. So they're going to be mad about that the most. And USA Today ambushes Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo about gun control, and they were not biting. Good on them. Don't allow yourselves to be politicized. More coming up. Stay with us.
Miss anything from the show? Check out the full podcast on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen.
And they'll continue to use their influence on adults who have reached voting age already, and when they reach voting age, they'll continue to be willing to turn out of office the people that have abjectly submitted themselves to the domination of NRA. And the NRA basically represents the gun manufacturers and sellers instead of the average hunters and people.
Oh, it does not. Don't you have a pro-American regime to overthrow somewhere so that it can create decades of just angst and control? Because that's what he did. By the way, Jimmy Carter is one of my least favorite presidents. So one of my favorite things is to read historical biographies. And I've read one, I think, almost on every single president at this point. My least favorites were Harding, FDR, and Carter. Not a huge Carter fan at all. Even more so than Bill Clinton. I know. Aren't you guys shocked? I know. But it's just because he was ridiculous with Iran, and then his administration kept trying to blame it on everybody else before him, which sounds so familiar to me. But anyway, I just find all of this incredibly interesting because that's not true. And I mean, if you want, the NSSF is what represents manufacturers. That's the National Shooting Sports Foundation. I mean, they literally represent, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But the NRA is a membership. So please get that right when you're lobbying hate. Goodness. All right. I want to move over. Audio Soundbite 9. Kirsten Powers, I've known her for a while. We've done caucus night on cable news and primaries and have covered all of that stuff. I disagree. I want you to listen to this, and I disagree with her here. Listen. 9.
So
yes.
I grew up in Alaska in a house with at least a dozen guns. I mean, I grew up shooting guns. We actually lived not near other people, so we were actually taught to defend the house with guns. We didn't have any semi-automatic weapons. We had shotguns. And we felt perfectly safe, and so did everybody else. So the issue isn't about whether or not someone could have a shotgun in their house. The issue is, like, why are people walking around with weapons that were created for war?
Okay, so 2 things. I guess the number of people who do something give greater validity to that thing. Just like if there are people out in the streets about a certain issue, the number of people out in the streets transfers into more validity for that issue. So if everyone started stealing their neighbors' cars because of the amount of people that do it, I guess that makes it okay, right? If a number of people do something, that makes it more acceptable. Is that because that seems fairly illogical and like a huge fallacy right there? That's not a good argument, number one. Number two, I grew up in rural Missouri, and that was not my experience. I grew up where my family members had every kind of rifle and handgun and pistol and shotgun and, lever action. I mean, they had everything. So that was not my experience. Furthermore, I think we have to be careful when we use the term weapons of war, because in the military, you're also given a handgun. I mean, that's just one of the things that they carry handguns in the military. They carry, they have, I know that they've 6-hour P225, I think is one that I know a friend of mine said that they'd carry. There's they carry all kinds of different, there's all kinds of different firearms that people in the military carry. Oh, sorry, P228. They carry SIGs. They carry Berettas. They carry all different kinds of 9mm. They carry, everything. So that could be classified as a weapon of war because they carry them. Muskets were weapons of war because they used muskets in a war that were privately owned by a lot of individuals, by the way. And then rifling came in from the French, and then they incorporated that technology, or for the lack of a better phrase, technology, incorporated that. So, that's, you can't just state that phrase. You can't just say, well, look, weapons of war, because military has handguns and that's a weapon of war. So we have to be very careful about the language that we use. And I would think that, if you have that many people around you who are, either in armed services or who you live out in a rural area, this, I mean, that has not been my experience. So anyway, I just think we have to be incredibly, Kane says that he wants a tank, that one of my neighbors has a tank.
Yeah, you can totally legally have one.
Yeah, he legit has a tank, and he rides it. He puts he's British, and he married an American, so it's a British tank specifically, and I forget what it is. Like, my kids all know what it is. They're like, that's a blah 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 blah. It's not an Abrams. It's a.
As soon as people start getting tanks, people are going to be all anti-tank.
He parks it in front of his house.
I know.
With a flag on it. He has a British flag and an American flag.
In your old neighborhood? I remember that. I remember seeing that.
Yeah, my neighbor has one of those. And so on Halloween, he drives it around very slowly because kids, trick-or-treating. And he drives it around very slowly, and there's lights on it and all of that.
It's painted green. It's awesome.
Well, I forget what kind it is. It's a British tank, though. He served in British Special Forces. So, and his wife's a nurse. I know that much.
You could probably float on water, too.
One of the other reasons why I like that neighbor so much, in addition to parking a tank in front of his house, like it's just a regular car, is that he also, for Halloween, they put for Christmas, the decorations that they put up in their house are Jack Skellington in a sleigh with the skeleton reindeer. It's so great. I'm like, God bless my neighbors, right? They're amazing. God bless America. But he legit has a tank, and he covers it up because the wife doesn't want it in the driveway, so he'll cover it up. But then he parks it right in front of the house. I just love it. I absolutely love it. So, people can own tanks. They can. They can. So there you go. I don't know. I'm what fascinates me is that I hear so many different arguments from people who say, well, the president's a total tyrant. Look at him. Such a tyrant. Also, we want him to take all your guns. What? I'm so confused. How does that work? It makes me very confused. I don't know. But yeah, Kirsten is not, that is, and I disagreed with some of what she was saying on Heller as well, because she was trying to argue that Heller didn't reaffirm the right for individual ownership of firearms, which is incredibly incorrect, because it absolutely did. And that's one of the things when she was discussing Justice Stevens, retired Justice Stevens' op-ed, that's one of the things that he was loath to note, and he actually even mentioned it because he said, well, it gave, gun owners, gave the NRA this huge weapon. What? No, it's a right. It's a right. I mean, bottom line. But this, I don't know. I just find,
I also hate the fact that some of their arguments are, oh, well, the NRA only represents 5 or 6 million people, and there's 300-something million people in the United States. It's like, no, the NRA represents your interests as far as the Second Amendment is concerned, which, by the way, covers everybody in the United States, not just whatever you think the membership number is for the NRA.
I don't even care.
You know what I mean? Right. I mean,
none of that has anything to do with the fact that Second Amendment is the Second Amendment.
Exactly. They think that's
Back
an
off.
argument, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just back off. Just back off. But there's I want to pull up a couple of other things that are related to this. So, this, I thought was, let me get this up. Free range parenting. I read about this family in Maryland, because this happened a little bit ago. This was like a couple of years ago. So this family, and I hate even the phrase free range parenting. I can't stand it. But this family in Maryland, they had the kids were allowed to walk to the playground, which is right by their house. And they ended up getting in trouble, and they had their kids taken by child family services and all of this stuff, because heaven forbid, I don't know. It's they live in Silver Spring, Maryland, and they had their kids ages 6 and 10. They were able to walk to a park literally right in their own subdivision, right in their own neighborhood. And they were allowed to walk to the park unsupervised. Oh my gosh. And they were stopped by police because some busybody, they decided to call the police, and they said there are these 2 children just wandering out there, 6 and 10. And so the police, they stopped them, and Montgomery Child
County Child Protective Services got involved, investigated the Mitevs for neglect. And then, that was in 2014. Then a year later, the kids were playing at a park without supervision. They dropped them off at the park at 4 p.m. They said, you have to come back within 2 hours. And the police took them into custody at 4:58, and they were not allowed to contact their parents. CPS did not contact the kids' parents. They only could find out where their kids were because they had to call 911 because their kids had gone missing because they were kidnapped. Yes, that's kidnapping. That's what that was. They were kidnapped by the state. And then Maryland officers had to clarify their views about kids playing or walking alone. And they said that CPS should have never been involved in such cases unless the kids faced harm or substantial risk of harm. And people have been calling their parenting style as free-range parenting. It's not free-range parenting. It's just legit common sense. Remove head from butt. It's not free-range parenting. That's parenting. You guys would flip. I had a wheeler. My southern Missouri accent. I had a three-wheeler. I had a three-wheeler that I used to just ride off with my German Shepherd out into the woods for hours at a time. I used to get on my three-wheeler when I was in elementary school, and I would ride on the shoulder of a road down to Black River in Mill Spring, Missouri. And I would stay down there totally unsupervised. What? No, totally unsupervised. Whoa. I was probably like 8 or 9. Whoa. And it wasn't that far from, the tavern that my family worked at. I know. From a tavern? What? It gets worse. And I went out and I played in the river and I did all kinds of stuff.
What's next? Coyotes and cottonmouths?
Yeah, it's crazy, right? So I remember also my aunt and uncle used to take care of this lodge in Sebula, Missouri, way down in the middle of nowhere. You can't even see this from Google Maps because it's all leafy green. And there was this little dam that was by it, and it was probably like 15, 20 feet up in the air that it kept, the width of it was it was as wide as a dollar bill is long. And I used to get up and just walk back and forth on that thing. The other side was a total drop off into a rocky, empty creek bed. Yes, I know. Yeah. And I used to walk back and forth on that all the time. I did all kinds of crazy stuff when I was a kid. Like, I was outside from sun up till sundown. I'd make my own little weapons. I'd make like a little bow and arrow with string and all this stuff. And I'd go out and I would be on my three-wheeler and I would just go out, and it was the most fun ever. I had so much fun. And this was in the 80s and 90s. Yeah, I had so much fun. And now everyone's like, oh my gosh, they legit walked around the corner from their house to the park. And people are freaking out. So anyway, the whole reason that I bring up this insane story, it is like Portlandia, is that now Utah is trying to legalize basically being able to be a parent. I hate the wit that they call it free-range parenting. There's no such thing as free-range parenting. It's just not being an annoying helicopter parent. And it's not that my parents didn't care. It's that they weren't annoying. It's that my parents were like, we raised you right. We trust that you're not going to go burn down something. Go have fun. You know what I mean? Like, did you not teach your children to, look, if I wouldn't, I'm going to be real with you here. If I had not, taught my kids, now don't get in the cars with strangers, don't burn anything on fire, stab yourself, or, just, basic stuff, maybe I'd worry. You know what I'm saying? But, my parent, I was a little bitty when I was a kid. Like, I started kindergarten when I was 4 and I wore toddler's clothes. So I was tiny, but I was mean. So, it's fine. And I was on a three-wheeler. So whoopity-doo. And I was like, I rode everywhere. I climbed up steep riverbanks with that thing. I did everything. And I had fun. I only got myself hurt one time when I busted my bottom lip because I was at a sand dune and I was just going up and doing all kinds of stuff. And that was not smart. And I knew it. I knew the moment it happened. I was like, well, crap. But I had the best time. Didn't get kidnapped. Also because people knew that if they were to kidnap me, they'd probably have to face the wrath of my crazy family. And that's the last thing that you want to happen. So it was just, I had fun. So I don't know why they call it free, why Utah even has to go, well, we're going to make sure we legalize allowing you to have children. That's basically what it is. Like, what is free range parenting? That doesn't even make any sense. Anyway, long story short, we got to go to break because I got Florida person coming up, Florida man. Florida person. ZipRecruiter makes it easy to hire, especially if you're struggling. You know that, job creation is booming, and now you're going to be competing for the right hire. ZipRecruiter makes it easy. You don't just post and pray, right? ZipRecruiter built a platform that finds the right job candidates for you. They learn what you're looking for. They identify the people that have the right experience, and then they go out and they invite them to apply to your job. 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just a day. The right candidates are out there, and ZipRecruiter is how you find them. Right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free just by going to ZipRecruiter.com/Dana. ZipRecruiter.com/Dana. ZipRecruiter is the smartest way to hire.
Giving you the facts from Anchorage to Alabama.
It's Dana Lash.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, this, I tell you, people, it's just, got them progressives triggered. Let's kick it into Florida person because I got so much.
It's time for Florida person. It's time to check what Florida is up to.
Okay. Florida man who owes over $500,000 in child support mysteriously vanishes in the ocean the day he's due in court, say police.
What are the chances?
What are the chances of that? Constantine George Theoharis was due in court March 20th to speak on charges of not paying his exorbitant child support bill. But he didn't show up. He's a commercial real estate agent. He didn't show up for court or work. And the judge rescheduled the hearing for Tuesday, and he didn't show up. And there have been no signs of him at all since he disappeared. And family members are worried. And they said, it's just weird for him to vanish. He went paddleboarding. And they said he's capable on the paddleboard, so it seems fishy to me. Yeah. So him and his wife have been divorced since 2008. And his wife has been fighting him for child support payments for their 2 daughters the last 5 years. That's a lot of money, $500,000. And they said his brother Richard Theoharis said that it was very capable. So he's supposed to go to court for child support and just vanishes in the ocean the day of court. They just can't find him. Wow. This guy. Florida man drove drunk on scooter with dog and shopping bag, say police. Suspect had a vodka cranberry at 10 a.m. A Palm Bay, Florida man was driving drunk on a scooter with his pup and a shopping bag. The incident began around 1 p.m. after a witness saw the dog jump out of the shopping bag that he was holding while riding down Bay Lakes Boulevard on the scooter. He stopped to get the dog, but then lost control of the scooter and knocked it down, causing him to hurt himself. When police arrived, because he couldn't get up, they smelled the alcohol all over him. The man claimed that he was taking his dog to the veterinarian. The dog jumped out of the shopping bag, so he laid down his scooter. And he only had 1 vodka cranberry at 10 a.m. because who doesn't, right? And then after they arrested him after conducting a field sobriety test because his alcohol level was like 0.094. So he was arrested on charges of DUI, property damage, DUI second offense. He also had an active warrant from another probation on felony battery coming out of Sarasota County. He was carrying his dog in a shopping bag.
And there's no law against that, apparently.
And the dog jumped out and he just lost control. Oh, my gosh. Anyway, folks, we have third hour on the way. Do not go anywhere. Back after this. If you've never heard of nitric oxide, listen up. Nitric oxide is one of the most important molecules in your body. It promotes healthy circulation, which gets the oxygen and nutrients flowing throughout the body and helps support healthy blood pressure. And you can help your body produce nitric oxide naturally by drinking Super Beets. Only Super Beets is made from non-GMO beets, carefully grown and then concentrated into superfood crystals. Mix a teaspoon into a few ounces of water with your choice of the mild berry or black cherry flavor. The nutrients in Super Beets are concentrated in a way that makes them usable to the body to create nitric oxide safely and naturally. So to erase fatigue and increase your body's nitric oxide levels, call 800-664-5617 or go to danasbeats.com. With your first order, get another 30-day supply of Super Beets free, plus indicator strips to see how Super Beets is working for you, and free shipping. Call 800-664-5617 or visit danasbeats.com today.
We need better Supreme Court judges who can interpret the Second Amendment in a way that is in keeping with what the American people want. You know, I think that there's a right to bear arms of individuals to protect their homes, and I passed a right to carry bill when I was a state senator because people ought to have a right to protect their home. But there are reasonable restrictions that can be placed on the purchase of weapons like AR-15s and AK-47s, and that's been the case through history. Sawed-off shotguns were not allowed since 1938, and even in the Heller decision of 2008, which was awful, in a 5-4 decision.
Yeah, he's not a pro. This is what I don't understand. Don't sit here and tell me at all whatsoever that you have no problem with the Second Amendment, but you have a huge problem with Heller, because you are full of something that I cannot say on air. Really want to, though, but I'm trying to get right with the Lord, and I'm not saying that in a mean way, but it is that word. It is full of so much of that word. So much of it. Welcome back to the show. Third hour at D Lash on Twitter, official Dana Lash on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, blah, 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 blah. But that's who was this guy? What was his name again? He sounded like Barney Fife. Who's this dude? Well, you can just go in and get you an AK-47. You can just walk into your Buckeyes and get you an AK-47. It's so easy. It's easier to get this AK-47 than it was to get a pound of hamburger meat and some pork and beans. It's not how any of that works, dude. I mean, I hate to rain all over your little parade there, but that ain't how this works at all. You cannot say you are wrong, and I will debate you all day long. You cannot say that you don't have a problem with the Second Amendment, but you have a problem with Heller. You're showing that you are not smart enough to talk about this. I'm not even going to be nice about it. I know that everybody wants to cover their genitals and cower right now. Dana doesn't do that, ever. With every attempt to intimidate me, I just get louder. But this, it is not that you don't understand what you're talking about. Let me just go back, because I actually wrote about this in my first book, Hands Off My Gun. My gun, not your gun, hands off. Actually, it was just called Hands Off My Gun. That was too long. But Heller reaffirmed the right of an individual's self-defense. It wasn't just to protect the home. It was the right of an individual to protect themselves. And this idea, when he talks about reasonable restrictions, and we've talked about this before on the program, is that the limitations upon the right to bear arms, and Scalia had discussed the colonial era of writing, which I talked about in my book as well. And when he was discussing in Heller, he said there are undoubtedly some restrictions. For instance, obviously, if you do something so absolutely heinous that you forfeit your rights of your own volition, then of course there's a restriction. He also said, the tort called a frighting, which was back in the colonial era, if you carried around like a really horrible weapon, like a head axe, specifically to scare people, that was a misdemeanor. It was a misdemeanor like brandishing nowadays is a misdemeanor. And so he goes, yes, there are some limitations that can be opposed, and that specifically is what he was talking about. But it's a frighting that is inapplicable to commonly held firearms that gun control advocates want to ban. So it's a ridiculously illogical claim otherwise, because it specifically suggests intimidation, right? And so when people sit here and they talk about Heller and they talk about how somehow it doesn't mean that it is about individual self-defense, they're distorting what they're distorting Heller, period. They're just, that's just absolutely it. And what amazes me is that even throughout the history of time, when I look back to the 3/5 ruling from Roger Taney, with Dred Scott, that they knew, Taney and Democrats even knew at the time, that the Second Amendment wasn't the militia. Everyone's like, well, it's a militia. A militia, as was defined by the founder George Mason, said, quote, "It is the whole of the people. Every American man and woman." And the decision that Taney had made, which goes to show you that throughout history, Democrats have always been aware that Second Amendment rights, they're not specifically talking about going and getting involved in some state organized group. Otherwise, specifically where it relates to the 3/5 decision that Taney authored, they would not have used the right to bear arms as the factor to deny Dred Scott personhood. If they really believed that all you had to, that it totally specifically meant you had to go and join a state organized group, because that wasn't what he was talking about with Dred Scott. A lot of people don't, when you go back and you look, they undercut their argument historically. And that's actually what Stevens was talking about in his dissent with Heller. He was saying, well, you just, can just go and join a state-owned. That's no. I mean, the Federalist Papers, not to mention the minutes at the time of Second Amendment debate, all of that completely undercut that entire false argument. So I don't know what this guy's getting at. I mean, he sounds like just a nut job. He just sounds like a nut job. He's like, well, we just have to have better. Heller was wrong. Yeah, but I like the Second Amendment. So you're saying that you like the Second Amendment, but you hate the Second Amendment because Heller reaffirmed the individual right to bear arms. Not just for your home, but the individual right to bear arms. So, I mean, that's period. So, I just, it's when I hear these arguments, these are not good arguments that people are making, which is unfortunate because these are the individuals that have been given authority to modify your rights based upon their lack of education on them or their prejudice towards you, which is unfortunate. One of the things that I saw today is now people are going after advertisers of anyone who dares disagree, I guess, with Parkland students. And this was one of the things I think that was set up by gun control groups. From what I understand, they had gun control groups there at Parkland like that day. That's what I was told. I wasn't there, so I don't know, but that's what I was told. And I've seen that discussed quite a lot amongst people online. And the idea that, because I've seen gun control advocates for so long, the arguments that they make pretty much consist of, it pretty much consists of them attacking the appearance and mocking personally Second Amendment advocates. I mean, that's pretty much for all of the money that Michael Bloomberg spends. The only thing that he's been able to get out of it are the Moms Demand people making fun of my leather jacket. And I'm not kidding you. That's what they've literally done repeatedly. And they have refused to partner on anything with school safety. They've refused to do anything with any gun safety, anything at all. They don't have any programs and they put no resources towards that at all whatsoever. So when they say they're about safety, they're lying to you. They're not. In fact, when they had the march, they had fundraisers happening at the time, and all of the money that was raised went to Everytown. Did you know that? Everytown got the money from all of the fundraising at the march. Do you think Everytown's going to turn around and spend that money on safety measures for schools? Hell no. Michael Bloomberg wants that money. He wants to recoup the millions that he put in for the Porta-Johns and all that stuff. So you have to ask yourself, well, then, if there was fundraisers, what were the fundraisers going towards? I mean, it's great to march and raise awareness and all of that stuff. But, I mean, isn't the subject school safety? And if you're not doing anything where it concerns school safety, then, I mean, I have to say, then what is the overall goal? Because you're not going to repeal the Second Amendment. We talked about that yesterday. You're not going to ban semi-automatic firearms. What is the goal? Because none of those things actually contributed. Just because someone used an instrument does not mean that, well, if you get rid of the instrument, all of the problems have gone away. And the desire to murder other individuals goes away. And the desire to defend people. Criminals won't get guns if you prevent the law-abiding from getting them. When has that ever worked? But the really big thing that sticks out to me, and we're going to talk about the advertising stuff coming up, is the fact that Michael Bloomberg demands armed security. And has armed security everywhere he goes. Shannon Witz, or Watt, the mom's whatever lady, she has armed security. I know that because when she followed everybody to the NRA annual meetings one year, I went to go out and politely interview her, and she sent her armed security out to hip check me and stomp all over my feet. And it was all on camera. There are two. I'm actually going to talk about it on Relentless tonight, and I'll show you that video. And then the Everytown, Erica Soto Lamb, the spokesperson for that, confirmed that they did have armed security, and they do continue to have armed security. So they demand armed security for them. They demand it. Armed security for them. Armed security for Bloomberg. They refuse to allow your children to have armed security to protect them. They refuse. But they care so much. He wants armed security. They want armed security for themselves, but they will work relentlessly to deny you that same protection for your kids. Now, why is that? Don't you find that weird? Because I do. We have a lot more coming up. And this, we're going to get to Today in Stupidity as well. So don't fret. Purple Heart Foundation is an organization of volunteer veterans. And we talk a lot about vets. And in fact, we talk a lot about veterans every single day. And today we're actually honoring the members of those in our armed forces who served during the Vietnam War. And we're thanking them for their service and their sacrifice. And so with the Purple Heart Foundation, these are volunteer vets that work to make sure that all veterans, not just those combat wounded, they wade through the bureaucracy at the VA. That's one of the mainstays of their outreach. They assist vets of all ages and from all wars to get the benefits to which they are entitled. It shouldn't be a struggle for veterans, but it's sickening that it is. And the Purple Heart Service Foundation, it's one of the oldest chartered vets organizations around, and they have a great track record as proof of their dedication to vets. They work with all vets and their families to make sure they get those benefits, and they don't stop until they do. They have all different kinds of support programs, PTS support, job training, educational scholarships, canines for combat vets. They identify and remove homeless veterans from the streets and get them back on their feet. And whenever you make a donation, that's where your money goes. Call 888-414-4483. That's 888-414-4483. All donations are 100% tax deductible. Give to purpleheart.org.
Stream the podcasts. Tell your Amazon device, Alexa, play the Dana Show podcast.
Do it, Alexa. Play it. Do it. Do as told. Ooh, so Sheriff Scott Israel popped back up when, by the way, I want to just commend the Miami Herald and the Florida Sun-Sentinel. If you want an example of journalism, Brian Stelter, I want you to look at those two publications. And then local reporter Bob Norman. That is what journalism looks like. Everyone at CNN and MSNBC can take a page from their books. Take a lesson. That is what real journalism looks like. It is a joy to read them, and I am more informed by those publications and by those local media than I am any of those network folks. They do amazing work. Those are the few people I talk about. They restore my hope in reporting because they're not going at it from an angle. They're reporting just the facts. I don't need to be coddled. They're reporting the facts, and I appreciate that. So kudos to them. A local reporter named Bob Norman, and we'll share this with you because you're gonna have to hear this because I played this on Relentless on NRA TV yesterday, and this was pretty. He did not like because he appeared at this like a little political event, and then he was at a meeting of the Democrat Club at a local restaurant, and the reporter's like, well, how are you're avoiding answering questions, but yet you have time for these political functions. And we're gonna do that at the bottom of the hour coming up next segment. You've got to hear because the sheriff gets mad and ignorant with the reporter. Not surprised. Wait until you hear this. It is unreal. Unreal. And we're going to talk about that coming up. In the meantime, Quick Five.
It's time for Dana's Quick Five.
Well, the United States needs to borrow some money because they're, about $200 some odd billion worth of money. It's the highest for a week since the record set during the 2008 financial crisis. They always say federal revenue is declining because specifically of Trump's tax cuts. No. Revenue declines because you're spending everybody's money on entitlements. That is why. Keeping more of your own money does not cost. That is not a revenue drain. Entitlements are that's a revenue drain. This article is so badly written, I can't even read it anymore. Okay, I didn't have this. I mentioned this yesterday. DMX's lawyers are going to play his songs in court because they want to sway the judge during sentencing. You're all going to make him lose his mind up in here. You're all going to make him go all out. DMX's legal team, they want to use his music. They're using his music today during his sentencing, his tax fraud sentencing. He's pleading guilty to avoid $1.7 million in taxes. He said that it's a 5-year sentence. And so the attorney, Murray Richmond, said he's going to play a few of DMX's songs at the sentencing so the judge will understand him genuinely in his voice. He says that DMX may be too emotional to speak. He goes, "It is raw, Earl. We are not here desirous of molding him into what someone to see. Earl is uniquely him, and that's both his beauty of mind and his genius." So, okay, that's... If they think it'll work, I don't know. Just, we'll see. Enough is enough, say marchers at Paris as they rally for the murdered Holocaust survivor. France 24 says that they held marches after this woman who escaped deportation to Auschwitz when she was 9. She's lived in Paris's 11th district, and she was stabbed to death by a Muslim guy that she's known since he was apparently a kid. And this is like the latest. They said this is, it's insane that this is happening. So they said there's a rise in anti-Semitism in France. There's been a string of anti-Semitic killings there that have increased the alarm in the country's Jewish community. And so people are marching now, as they should, because this is scary. Incomes in Idaho are rising at fastest rate in nation, says Wall Street Journal. Interesting, but they say that workers in Idaho are leading the nation in earnings growth because of the job market and pockets of labor shortages. We have a lot more coming up, including what Sheriff Israel, the Broward coward, is up to now. Stay with us.
It's The Dana Show.
Did you lie to the governor about the number of deputies who were outside?
Bob, I'm disappointed in your constant reporting, misrepresentations and things like that.
What have I misrepresented? He didn't name one and didn't answer any more questions, but later that evening I learned he made a stop at the strip mall to attend a meeting of the Weston Democratic Club. How do you have time to politic when you got all these problems?
Bob, hold on one second. As I said before, your stories have never been balanced.
This isn't about me, Sheriff. I'm sorry, this isn't about me.
Your stories have never been
balanced. There's 17 dead
and when
people.
You become
if you're disappointed in me, I think there's a lot of people disappointed in you.
But as I said, I disagree with you. But
you haven't heard?
No. But
about the country being disappointed in
not at all.
In the BSO?
No, not at all. My job is to protect and serve the Broward County resident.
Did you do that?
That's what BSO is all about.
Did you do that?
But when the report is in, we'll have that conversation.
Wow. So that's the sheriff that nobody held a sign up and not a single person protested or criticized at the March for Our Lives, even though he was really the one who was responsible for not saving lives. But hey, he's not responsible. Do you know why? Because he's a Democrat that preaches gun control. And so it's okay if they don't do their job and allow children to be shot to death in a school because they missed over 45 red flags. So that's okay. Democrats will excuse anyone culpable of murder so long as they toe their line. Gun control advocates will excuse anyone culpable of murder so long as they toe their line. But if you happen to be a mother who wants to make sure that they are protected, they will do everything to go after that mother, even increasing threats to her family. Because it's okay to threaten violence against people who are pro-gun control. Gun control advocates have sanctioned it. In fact, Moms Demand in every town have endorsed it. Moms Demand is yes, they have endorsed it because their people have sent stuff to my house and all that kind of stuff. I know. That's what I guess Bloomberg's money goes for. But this, which is unfortunate, and I just, it's horrible that this guy is able to, and he got so mad. And this reporter, Bob Norman, who did a fantastic job, and he's doing the job that CNN wishes they would do. He's doing the job Jake Tapper should have done when he was sitting on the town hall instead of me. I was doing Jake's job of asking this guy questions that he should have been asked. But he also asked, how many deputies were outside when, about the incident, because he was noting conflict between what Israel told Governor Scott in audio recordings in which other deputies said that they heard gunshots on the campus. And that's when Israel began blaming media and began blaming him. It's not his fault. And he's like, yeah, there are more people disappointed in you. What? Now, there's supposed to be a report that's released by the governor within the next several weeks. And morale is apparently so low. Bob Norman spoke Local 10 to that it's so low that they're actually looking to have a vote of no confidence against Sheriff Israel. But even if he's removed from office, he's going to run again for that same seat. Pretty unbelievable, huh? Yeah. Yeah. So that's pretty unbelievable. But no one is, no one's protesting him, though. No one's protesting him. No one's protesting, Sheriff Israel, who ignored all of the tips and everything. He was aware. Sheriff Israel knew. He knew this dude, this murderer, put a gun to his own mom's head, that he hit her in the head so hard he knocked her teeth out. I mean, they knew that. I mean, he knew all of this. He knew that he had threatened other students. And he actually, he knew all of this. The murderer had even called the sheriff and said, I'm dangerous. So, I don't know, it's crazy. But see, it doesn't do the gun control movement any good to highlight his inadequacy. So long as he pays the penance of supporting disarmament, they're going to be okay with him. Which just goes to show you, if it really was about saving lives, then they would be all over him, because he didn't. If it was really about saving lives, then they would be all over him. Don't you think so? I mean, the gun control lobby would be all over. They would be calling for this guy to step down because he didn't do it, and he knew. He was aware. But that's just the way it is. I mean, don't you think he seems to have he seems to be hot tempered, doesn't he? I was looking at it.
He doesn't have a leg to stand on, so I'd be kind of defensive too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if it was about saving lives, they would protest the sheriff because he didn't. Bottom line. Bottom line. But it is what it is. I mean, they say the morale within the office was so low, the union was considering a no confidence vote against Sheriff Israel. Just wow. And then he actually had the audacity to sit there on stage and act as though that his lack of duty was my responsibility and your all's responsibility. Yeah. Because he's just interested in saving his own political career. That's all he's interested in. By the way, I don't know if I told you, did you, because you know that he's actually been under investigation before, this sheriff, his hiring of political supporters has been under fire quite a bit. In fact, the Florida Sun-Sentinel did a fantastic job. They said that, he's built a publicly funded political machine, paying back supporters with jobs and using them to keep him in office. They say the money could be better spent, particularly after he complained about not having enough funding to secure the county courthouse where a murderer recently escaped. Instead, they said he built an outreach wing from nothing, aiming to foster, quote, a love affair with the community. And he hired all of his friends and his cronies, and he put them in some 6-figure salary positions when they really didn't even have the resume to be in them. Florida Sun-Sentinel, I could sit here and spend the next 10 minutes going through the bullet list that they have. It pretty amazing how they hired all of these people as like these outreach specialists. In fact, in the community, it said, quote, if you're not part of his cliques, you don't get hired. Wow. And when he was investigated for corruption, that he said, quote, lions don't care about the opinions of sheep. He quoted Game of Thrones again. That was his response when he was asked about corruption. I mean, this guy, there is a long history of deceit. Just awful. It's just awful. But and he passed the blame onto everybody else. But, you know, the sheriff failed. He failed the community. If it was about saving lives, the gun control lobby would protest this sheriff who failed. I mean, it was. Bottom line. Instead, they focus on everybody else. Instead, they focus on innocent people who have nothing to do with any of that. I mean, don't you think so? I mean, honestly, just like if this dude who was legit responsible for fielding and getting all of these reports in, if he didn't do anything, then how are the people who weren't even aware of this, because that's not their job, how are they responsible? I mean, bottom line. It's incredibly unfortunate. And it is, the thing that worries me is because how do you know it's not going to happen again? You know, when they had that shooting at the airport, his response to that was heavily criticized because it was just a disaster. And he kept trying to make excuses. I guess he was too busy hiring people to, that worked and got him elected and paying them off with, those kind of campaign jobs or those kind of department jobs. Just crazy. We have Today in Stupidity coming up next. Now, tomorrow's Open Line Friday and Mailbag of Hate. We have those two for you as well. So make sure that you, Fridays are always fun. Every business needs great people, and they need a better way to find them. Something better than posting your job online and praying for the right people to see it. So if you're hiring, posting your position to job sites and waiting for the right people to see it isn't the answer. ZipRecruiter knew there was a smarter way, so they built a platform that finds the right job candidates for you. ZipRecruiter learns what you're looking for. They identify people with the right experience and invite them to apply to your job. Now, these invitations have revolutionized how you find your next hire. In fact, 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. And ZipRecruiter doesn't stop there. They even spotlight the strongest applications you receive so you never miss a great match. The right candidates are out there. ZipRecruiter is how you find them. Businesses of all sizes trust ZipRecruiter for their hiring needs. Right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/Dana. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Dana. ZipRecruiter.com/Dana. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
Miss anything from the show? Check out the full podcast on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen.
This is so sick. They say there are fangirls sending the Parkland murderer mail in jail. Yeah, good job, media, for showing that, hey, if you're a murderer, you can get a lot of publicity for your massacre. Just awful. Absolutely awful. Gosh, what the heck? Some people's children. Like, who's sending this dude this stuff? It's so gross. Ugh. But this is what happens when media treats these dudes like this.
And how bad does your normal life have to be that you look up to a murderer?
It's sickening. It's like that one who was like with Manson, right? I mean, all those people that were sending him stuff, and then that one chick who was gonna, why? They're murderers. What is wrong with you? What is Jiminy Christmas? Anyway, my program Relentless on NRE TV will, it's 5 p.m. Central, so make sure you tune in because I have some really good stuff I have some really good stuff coming up for you on that, so you're going to want to tune in. And then tomorrow, Friday, is Open Line Friday, and we'll have Mailbag of Hate. So, I have to point out, so one of the things that we saw today is that one of the students at Parkland has been going after other has been going after advertisers and that of certain broadcasters who I think sometimes maybe say things not in the most articulate of ways. But can we stop acting like this is like about school safety and memorials and all of that now? Because it hasn't. It's not. At least that's not how it's being presented out there. Not at all. In fact, who was it? One of the things that the Parkland student David Hogg had said when he was talking to who was this? Some guy named Fred Gutenberg, who was talking about the apology to save advertisers. And Hogg said, I 100% agree. An apology in an effort just to save your advertisers is not enough. I will only accept your apology if you denounce the way your network has treated my friends and I in this fight. It's time to love thy neighbor, not mudsling at children. Well, we can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, I'm a child after you call people murderers and question their parenting and say that looking at you is like looking down the barrel of an AR-15 and engage in ad hominem and call them names and mock their appearance and many other things that are not, these are not features of mature and responsible debate. They're not. I mean, the sad thing is that there are a lot of adults who don't engage in mature and responsible debate. And that's one of the big problems, because a lot of those role models for immature and irresponsible debate are the adults that are in the gun control movement. If that's all you have to model your discussion on, then I can see how you would think that that's appropriate, but it isn't. And you can't demand a seat at the policy-making table and then also claim that no one can disagree with you because you're children. It doesn't work that way. I don't believe children should be at the policy-making table anyway. If you're too immature and too irresponsible to bear arms, then you're too immature and too irresponsible to make policy about bearing arms. That's not persecution. It's vulgar to say so. It's offensive and vulgar to say that that's persecution. That is what is called disagreement. And I think that there need to be more adults in this conversation. And I think that the adults who are on the gun control side, they need to stop projecting their bigotry onto others. And they need to stop allowing people to say the things that they really want to say, but no, optically, it looks entirely inappropriate for them to say it. That needs to stop. But you can't say, well, I'm a child, so you can't disagree with me, but also I'm a young adult and I demand to shape policy. Pick one. Doesn't go both ways. Particularly after you've called people murderers and you've told them that they've had blood on their hands and their faces, and you've cursed them and you've mocked their parenting. Others have mocked appearances, for crying out loud. No, sorry, but I think if there are apologies given, maybe people should start rectifying how they're handling this debate, because it's entirely inappropriate. And, you know, if I have to be the mother here and say, okay, guys, let's take it down a notch, then I'll be the mother to say it. If I have to come in and parent everybody, then I will. Let's stop. All right. So today in stupidity.
All right. Well, actually, I have a couple of cuts. It's kind of because there's so much stupidity out there. I just thought maybe I should probably do two if we have time, and I think we do. First one's Joy Behar, and then the second one would be Representative Jayapal. But they both are saying some pretty stupid things.
She's lovely, but we can't really like her 100% because she is a birther like her husband. I interviewed her on my HLN show, and that's where we made news on that, because I asked her, do you think that Obama was born? No, and she was not born in this country.
It's a naked political ploy to depress participation in the census. And it's really outrageous to me. I was hoping that Wilbur Ross would have a much more nuanced view and be able to come out and say, no, the most important thing is that we do a very good census.
So it's just everything's racist when they don't agree with it. That's just basically what it comes down to. We can't like you and you're racist because we don't agree with you.
Right. Yeah.
That's what it boils down to. Pretty stupid.
Yeah. I agree. Folks, tomorrow, Open Line Friday, Mailbag of Hate. Have a great night. Relentless on NRE TV at 5 p.m. Central. I'll be on with you tomorrow.